What happens when the biggest group on the planet faces relentless accusations from critics and industry insiders? They don't start flame wars online, they settle the score live on stage right under everyone's noses. BTS turned some of their harshest real-world controversies into brilliant, unscripted stage statements. How many of these 7 calculated clapbacks did you completely miss when they happened in plain sight? Number 7. The ultimate silence, Suga. Back in late 2017, BTS was experiencing an unprecedented, meteoric rise on the global stage, shattering records and bringing K-pop to the Western mainstream. But in the music industry, with massive success inevitably comes a massive, coordinated wave of unwarranted hate. A rampant, viral rumor had begun spreading like wildfire across online forums and social media platforms, with bitter critics, rival fandoms, and anti-fans aggressively claiming that the septet was faking their live performances. The haters argued that BTS's signature choreography, especially for high-octane, intensely physical tracks like DNA and Mic Drop, was far too fast, sharp, and physically exhausting for any human being to sing live without relying entirely on pre-recorded vocal tracks. In the K-pop industry, where heavily layered backing tracks are a common crutch for intense dance routines, the accusations were meant to discredit the group's raw talent, trying to paint them as manufactured studio products who couldn't back up their fame in real life. The malicious hate on Twitter went incredibly viral, with many prominent, verified handles jumping on the bandwagon to accuse them of lip-syncing their way to the top. But instead of releasing a frantic, defensive press statement or having Big Hit Entertainment write up a sanitized PR apology, the group chose a much more lethal route. They decided to let their stage do the talking. Fast forward to December 25, 2017, at the massive SBS Gayo Daejun Year-End Music Festival. BTS was scheduled to perform a grueling, sweat-inducing multi-song set that included Mic Drop, DNA, and Not Today. The energy in the packed arena was absolutely electric, and the live television broadcast was being scrutinized by millions around the world, including the very critics who had their magnifying glasses out, praying for a vocal slip-up. As the gritty, bass-heavy beat of Mic Drop reached its boiling point, it was time for the group's lead rapper, Suga, to step up and deliver his fiery verse. Min Youngi was attacking the track with his usual aggressive, rapid-fire flow, proving his breath control was flawless despite the heavy dancing. But right as he reached the track's most iconic, taunting line, "If your stomach hurts, sue me," he did the unthinkable. For a full 3 seconds, Suga completely stopped rapping. He intentionally pulled his microphone away from his face, rested his arms, and just stared dead into the live broadcast camera with a chilling, knowing smirk. The arena echoed with absolutely nothing but the heavy instrumental bass of the backing track. There was no hidden vocal track covering for him, no backup lip-sync audio playing in the background to mask the silence, just pure, undeniable, deafening silence. In those 3 brilliant, unscripted seconds, Suga single-handedly dismantled months of viral hate campaigns without breaking a sweat. By refusing to rap that specific line, he essentially told the entire world, "Jealous that we actually sing live even with our difficult choreography? Then go ahead and sue me." The clip of this moment instantly exploded across the internet, making global headlines and sending a clear, terrifying message to the music industry. BTS is the real deal. Their mics are always on. And they do not need backing tracks to completely dominate a stage. Fans dubbed it one of the most savage clapbacks in music history, an absolute masterclass in proving haters wrong without uttering a single defensive syllable. It was a legendary flex of confidence that cemented his reputation as the group's unapologetic truth-teller, completely humiliating the critics who had tried to drag their names through the mud. But if you thought Suga's silent, camera-staring Mic Drop was the ultimate display of stage dominance, wait until you see how the group's fearless leader turned a prestigious. Millions watched awards show into his own personal execution ground for the industry insiders who tried to steal their crown. Number 6. The awards show ambush RM. Back in 2014, BTS was still fighting an uphill battle for respect in the cutthroat Korean music industry, constantly dismissed as rookies from a tiny, broke agency called Big Hit Entertainment. To make matters worse, idol rappers were widely mocked in the underground hip-hop community for having fake street credibility. That friction reached a boiling point when Bobby, the newly crowned winner of the rap survival show Show Me the Money 3, released underground diss tracks taking direct shots at BTS and their leader. In tracks like Raise Your Guard and Bounce, Bobby took aim at RM's former stage name, Rap Monster, and BTS's very identity, rapping that he was a monster standing in front of bulletproof glass and mocking their looks and skills. The hip-hop community quickly seized on the diss, treating it as proof that BTS were just manufactured posers who couldn't stand their ground in a real rap battle. The media began hyping up the rivalry, waiting to see if RM would back down or hide behind PR-safe answers. But RM had grown up in the underground rap scene as Runch Randa, and he knew the golden rule of hip-hop. You do not run from a diss. You answer it on the biggest stage possible. Just weeks later, on December 3rd, 2014, the Net Asian Music Awards in Hong Kong took place, one of the most prestigious live broadcasts in all of Asia. BTS was slated for a high-profile collaborative stage with veteran hip-hop group Block B. With millions of viewers tuning in and industry heavyweights watching from the front row, RM walked out under blinding spotlights for his solo rap segment and unleashed completely unreleased, custom-written bars. Instead of playing it safe, RM flipped Bobby's exact words back onto him with surgical precision, spitting with razor-sharp cadence. Put your guard up and follow me, rapper, you tone-deaf rapper. I can rap with my eyes closed, you couldn't even keep up with the beat. The arena went wild, and the sheer audacity of executing a live, on-air lyrical counterattack on a major television broadcast stunned critics who expected idol rappers to be meek and controlled by company handlers. When questioned by reporters backstage after the performance, RM stayed completely calm and confident, explaining that it was pure hip-hop culture, a respectful, competitive response to challenge another lyricist on the mic rather than harboring personal malice. In a single broadcast minute, RM proved that BTS didn't just understand hip-hop, they lived it, and anyone questioning their pen game would get thoroughly dismantled in front of the entire continent. That moment established Kim Namjoon as an untouchable lyricist who couldn't be intimidated by industry hype or rival labels. But if you think verbal warfare was the only way BTS defended their honor, wait until you hear how the group's oldest member used an emotional acceptance speech to openly call out the corrupt music charts and change the entire industry forever. Number 5. The Honest Chart Callout Jimin. In the later half of 2019, the Korean music industry was fighting a massive, highly controversial battle behind closed doors, plagued by a toxic epidemic known as Sajiji. This was the illegal practice of digital chart manipulation, where corrupt agencies would pay underground streaming factories to deploy thousands of fake accounts and bots to artificially stream songs, forcing them to the very top of the charts. Suddenly, completely unknown artists were blocking established legends and massive idol groups from hitting number 1, creating a deep sense of frustration among fans and genuine musicians alike. During this chaotic period, BTS was breaking global records with Boy With Love, but even they weren't immune to the whispers of bitter critics and rival stans who constantly tried to invalidate their organic, massive success by lumping them in with the industry's murky data practices. The tension regarding chart integrity was at an absolute boiling point, but because of the aggressive legal threats involved, most major artists and entertainment companies remained completely silent, too terrified to speak out against the invisible powers manipulating the numbers. But BTS doesn't operate on fear, and their oldest member decided it was time to address the massive elephant in the room. Fast forward to December 4th, 2019, at the Net Asian Music Awards held in the massive Nagoya Dome in Japan. BTS had just achieved an unprecedented sweep, ultimately taking home all 4 daesangs, or grand prizes, a historic first for any group. When they were announced as the winners for Song of the Year, the septet walked up to the stage, and the microphone was handed to Jimin. Known globally for his playful, worldwide handsome persona, flying kisses, and light-hearted jokes, viewers fully expected a standard, joyful thank you speech. Instead, Jin's expression was dead serious. Standing before thousands of industry peers, powerful executives, and millions of global viewers, he delivered a polite but absolutely lethal verbal strike that shook the K-pop industry to its absolute core. After warmly thanking ARMY for their unwavering support, Jin looked directly out into the crowd and stated clearly, "There are so many artists and people making songs right now. I really want us to live in a world where all of those songs are heard and get the recognition they deserve. I know there are some negative ways to do this, but music should be done in an honest way." The impact was instantaneous and deafening. The live broadcast immediately captured other idols in the audience, nodding in deep respect and sheer awe. In just 3 brilliantly calculated sentences, without raising his voice or ever losing his perfect composure, Jin had publicly called out the Sajiji manipulators on the absolute biggest stage in Asia. He completely dismantled the haters who questioned BTS's organic streaming numbers by actively advocating for a transparent, honest industry where real artists wouldn't get buried by fake data. His bravery immediately sparked widespread, explosive praise across South Korean media, empowering other artists to finally speak up and eventually leading to a massive, highly publicized investigative broadcast on national television that officially exposed the digital chart manipulators. Jin proved that true power isn't just winning the prestigious awards, it's having the unbreakable spine to defend the integrity of music itself when everyone else is too scared to talk. But while Jin used his words to completely decimate corrupt industry insiders, just wait until you see how the group's lead dancer used absolute, breathtaking physical perfection to completely silence the cultural critics who dared to accuse BTS of abandoning their Korean roots to chase Western fame. Number 4. The cultural masterpiece, Jimin. In late 2018, BTS was reaching unprecedented heights that no Asian act had ever achieved before, securing their historic first #1 albums on the US Billboard 200 chart and performing in packed stadiums across North America and Europe. But along with this monumental international breakthrough came a sharp, persistent narrative from snobbish music critics, industry traditionalists, and anti-fans who began openly accusing BTS of selling out. The detractors aggressively claimed that the group had abandoned their Korean artistic identity, watering down their authenticity and conforming to Western pop commercialism just to chase mainstream American approval and radio plays. Cultural gatekeepers questioned whether a globalized boy band could truly represent Korean heritage, trying to frame their international fame as a betrayal of their musical origins. For months, this cynical Western pandering accusation echoed across forums, dismissing their artistry as hollow pop marketing. But instead of engaging in endless intellectual debates or publishing defensive press releases, BTS used their artistic brilliance to deliver an unforgettable cultural masterclass that silenced every single critic in under a minute. On December 1, 2018, at the Melon Music Awards held at the massive Gocheok Sky Dome in Seoul, BTS prepared an iconic, deeply theatrical performance of their hit song, Idol. Just before the explosive main track kicked in, the blinding arena lights dimmed to a moody, dramatic hue, and the group's lead dancer, Park Jimin, stepped into the center stage. Dressed in a striking, flowing modernized black hanbok with sheer white fabric, Jimin raised a pair of traditional Korean fans and unleashed an astonishing, breathtaking rendition of Bukkichum, the sacred Korean traditional fan dance, fused seamlessly with his world-class contemporary dance background. For nearly 40 seconds of pure, hypnotic stage perfection, Jimin commanded the massive venue with razor-sharp precision, graceful aerial jumps, and explosive, fluttering fan snaps that echoed through the arena's sound system. Every single movement was a deliberate homage to centuries of Korean heritage, performed with an intensity that completely mesmerized millions of live international viewers who had never witnessed traditional Asian dance performed on such a massive, cutting-edge stage. The moment was an absolute masterstroke of artistic defiance. Without uttering a single spoken word, Jimin shattered the Western sellout narrative by unapologetically placing traditional Korean culture directly at the center of the global pop landscape. The performance immediately set the internet on fire, generating over 1.5 million tweets within hours and dominating global trending charts across dozens of countries. More importantly, the cultural impact was so undeniable that the Society for the Conservation of Korean Intangible Cultural Properties officially awarded Jimin an appreciation plaque, formally recognizing him for elevating and spreading Korea's traditional fan dance to a global audience. Jimin didn't just silence the haters who claimed BTS had abandoned their roots, he turned ancient tradition into a global phenomenon, proving that their Korean identity was never a compromise, but the very core of their artistic greatness. But while Jimin used traditional elegance to reclaim their cultural heritage, wait until you see how the group's most charismatic performer went completely rogue on a legendary American stage, using pure swagger and a single, unscripted gesture to utterly humiliate the Western critics who treated them like a manufactured novelty. Number 3. The unapologetic anthem, Jungkook. For years, Western media and conservative industry gatekeepers had desperately tried to push a deeply flawed, condescending narrative that K-pop idols were nothing more than heavily micromanaged, voiceless products manufactured in a corporate factory. They expected these global superstars to remain completely sanitized, perfectly obedient, and totally silent when faced with public scrutiny. By late 2021, BTS's youngest member, Jungkook, had become a massive target for this suffocating cultural expectation. He had dramatically evolved from the group's boyish, golden magne into a full-blown, unapologetic rock star, boldly sporting a full arm of heavy, intricate tattoos and multiple facial piercings. While millions of fans actively praised his fearless self-expression, conservative critics and relentless online anti-fans launched brutal hate campaigns, aggressively demanding he cover up his ink and accusing him of ruining the group's pristine, family-friendly image. At the exact same time, cynical Western music critics were trying to downplay BTS's monumental post-pandemic stadium return, arrogantly suggesting their historic run of English mega hits was just a temporary commercial fad. Jungkook had heard every single bitter complaint and read the malicious comments, but instead of hiding his ink, playing the victim, or issuing a carefully crafted PR statement to appease his detractors, he decided to completely nuke the manufactured idol stereotype on one of the biggest stages in the world. Fast forward to November 2021, inside the colossal, completely sold-out SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, California. BTS was performing their highly anticipated Permission to Dance on Stage concert to a roaring live crowd of 50,000 fans and a massive global livestream audience. The atmosphere was absolute chaos as the pulsing, heavy EDM intro for their explosive hype track, so what began echoing through the massive arena sound system. Historically, this specific song was just a fun, carefree moment for the members to run around the stage, but Jungkook had a much more lethal plan. Dressed in a sleek black outfit that proudly put his heavily tattooed arm on full, unedited display, he suddenly broke away from the group and marched straight down the extended stage. Radiating pure, unbothered rockstar charisma, he deliberately hijacked the live audio feed. Over the building electronic beat, he stared out into the blinding stadium lights and yelled in fierce, aggressive English, "I have something to say to the people who don't like me." The entire stadium held its breath for a split second, utterly stunned that a top-tier idol was actively, openly acknowledging his haters mid-concert. Then, flashing a devastating, arrogant smirk as he dramatically threw his arm out right at the exact millisecond the thumping bass dropped, he screamed at the top of his lungs, "So what?" The stadium completely erupted into deafening cheers. In two simple, violently defiant words, Jungkook publicly executed every single critic who had spent years trying to control his body and his artistry. It was a raw, deeply unscripted burst of pure rebellion that completely obliterated the Western media's tired narrative of the obedient, heavily controlled Asian pop star. He didn't just shut down the haters, he threw their complaints right back in their faces and danced all over them in front of a global audience, proving that he answers to absolutely no one but himself and his fans. The clip of his ferocious stadium battle cry instantly broke the internet, trending worldwide for days and cementing his status as an untouchable pop culture icon who refuses to be caged by outdated industry expectations. But if you thought Jungkook's verbal stadium smackdown was the ultimate display of alpha dominance, just wait until you see how the group's famously cheerful Sunshine completely transformed into a terrifying, stone-cold perfectionist to silently annihilate a massive technical insult on live television. Number 2. The technical takedown, J-Hope. In the music industry, Young Hoseok is universally beloved as BTS's resident Sunshine, a performer whose radiant smile and boundless energy can effortlessly light up massive stadiums. But what casual viewers often forget is that behind the bright persona, he is also the group's fiercely strict dance captain, a terrifyingly precise perfectionist who absolutely does not tolerate mistakes. On December 31st, 2022, J-Hope made history as the very first South Korean solo artist to perform on the legendary main stage of Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve in Times Square. With millions of Americans watching live on national television and relentless critics waiting like vultures to see if a K-pop idol could command the massive, chaotic holiday stage all by himself, the pressure was suffocating. But what the global audience didn't know was that behind the scenes, the production was devolving into a complete technical nightmare. During rehearsals in the freezing New York rain, J-Hope suffered a painful slip on the dangerously wet stairs. To make matters worse, the production crew completely fumbled his sound mix, leaving his microphone constantly cutting off and his in-ear monitors malfunctioning. For a global superstar of his caliber, being handed failing equipment on one of the most watched live broadcasts in America was a massive technical insult. Many artists would have panicked, complained, or let the disastrous audio conditions ruin their live vocals. Instead, J-Hope completely killed his cheerful Hobie persona. When the live countdown hit and the cameras finally rolled, the world saw the terrifying, stone-cold Young Hoseok mode take full control. Striding out into the freezing rain, J-Hope unleashed a flawless, hyper-aggressive medley of equals, equal sign, chicken noodle soup, and butter. Even without his earpiece feeding him the proper audio cues, he relied on pure, raw instinct and years of brutal training, hitting every single intricate pop and lock with lethal precision. But it was his facial expression that truly shook the viewers to their core. Gone was the signature bright smile. Instead, J-Hope stared directly down the live broadcast lenses with a fierce, intimidating death glare, radiating a dark, aggressive swagger that completely swallowed the massive Times Square stage. He didn't just survive the terrible audio conditions, he weaponized them. By executing an impossibly sharp, vocally stable performance while fighting freezing rain and dead equipment, he silently annihilated every critic who ever dared to dismiss K-pop idols as manufactured studio products who couldn't perform outside their safety nets. He proved that BTS's dance captain doesn't need a perfect stage, warm weather, or functioning audio to completely dominate. His raw talent alone is enough to hijack a national television broadcast. It was a terrifying display of pure alpha professionalism that left the American media completely stunned. But if you thought J-Hope's stone-cold survival mode was the ultimate flex, wait until you see how the group's most enigmatic vocalist used nothing but his eyes, a red carpet prop, and pure, unadulterated swagger to single-handedly destroy a massive hate campaign on the biggest award stage in the Western world. Number 1. The Grammy Heist v. In April 2022, the stakes could not have been higher for BTS. They were heading into the 64th Annual Grammy Awards in Las Vegas, nominated once again for Best Pop Duo/Group Performance for their record-smashing hit Butter. But behind the glittering red carpet, the group was facing an exhausting storm of industry cynicism and toxic media sabotage. For years, the traditional Western music establishment and elitist gatekeepers had treated BTS like token outsiders, using their massive global viewership to boost declining award show ratings while repeatedly snubbing them of major accolades. To make matters worse, just hours before the live broadcast began, predatory paparazzi aggressively leaked unauthorized, invasive photos of Kim Taehyung taking a quiet break outside the venue. Within minutes, malicious anti-fans and trashy tabloid outlets launched a vicious, coordinated smear campaign across social media, desperately trying to trigger a moral scandal, derail his public image, and rattle his confidence right before the biggest performance of his life. Haters across the internet gleefully anticipated that the immense public pressure and invasive smear attempts would cause him to stumble under the intense glare of Hollywood's most elite industry executives. But Kim Tae-young is not a performer you can intimidate. He is a masterclass in psychological showmanship. When the curtains lifted inside the MGM Grand Garden Arena, BTS didn't just perform a standard pop routine. They staged an audacious, cinematic heist that completely hijacked the entire ceremony. Instead of starting on the main stage with the group, V planted himself directly inside the celebrity audience, casually sitting right next to three-time Grammy winner and global sensation Olivia Rodrigo. Radiating pure, untouchable old Hollywood swagger, V locked eyes with Rodrigo, leaned in close, and whispered an unscripted, smooth secret into her ear. As she gasped in cinematic shock, V casually reached behind her hair, magically produced a hidden access card out of thin air, and with flick of the wrist precision, flung it across the entire auditorium straight into the waiting hand of Jungkook on the ceiling rig. The audacity was mind-boggling. In a single, 5-second theatrical masterstroke, V shattered the tension and reduced Hollywood's most prestigious, gate-kept auditorium into his own personal movie set. The room of Western music royalty was utterly spellbound, completely surrendering to his magnetic charisma. BTS went on to deliver a laser-sharp, James Bond-inspired performance of Butter that received a thunderous, unanimous standing ovation from the entire arena of A-list industry peers. That very night, major Western publications, including Billboard and Rolling Stone, unanimously crowned BTS's stage as the undisputed #1 best performance of the entire 64th Grammy Awards, with V's seductive card flick becoming the single most viral, replayed moment of the entire global broadcast. In under a minute, Kim Tae-young completely humiliated the tabloid vultures and cynical industry critics who had tried to sabotage him, proving that no amount of invasive media hate can ever extinguish genuine, generational star power. It was the ultimate, poetic victory for a group that started with nothing. 7 ordinary boys from Seoul who didn't just knock on the music industry's heavily guarded doors, they kicked them wide open, settled the score on their own terms, and permanently cemented their legacy as untouchable legends of modern music history.